If you are struggling with doing solid color ombre with dip powders on short nails, then this one's going to be for you. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. This one was by request. I put up a poll in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, and solid color ombre with dip powders came in number one by far. So I want to make sure I jumped right on it and show you guys how I do a solid color ombre when my nails are short. So I like to get everything out and have all my supplies ready. I'm using these small dip cup liners from SJ3. I get out my ombre brushes and then pour the dip powder in both the dip cups. I like to decide what nails I'm going to do the ombre on. And what I do is I start with the lighter color first and I tap it on. And I have both ombre brushes out so that I can just quickly go back and forth in between them. And I'm actually using one of SJ3's flexible mats as well because I make such a mess when I do ombre nails. I thought, you know what? Instead of always dirtying paper towels, like let me just use the flexible mat that I have that is sitting at me, staring at me like, okay, hey, I'm here to use too. So you want to start by pulling up some of the powder onto your brush and then aiming it towards the bottom of your nail. Like when your nails are short, your ombre is going to go up a little bit higher for that first layer. So I'm really only getting a tiny bit of the red. It's a neon red that I'm using. I get that at the tips of my nail because if you don't get a lot of the darker color on your nails, that's okay. When I do an ombre with short nails, I end up doing more scrubbing than I do when my nails are long. So my nails are long, I do more of a combination tap and scrub. When they're shorter, I still do a little bit of a combination, but I mostly just do scrub when they're shorter. Now on the first layer, I did that combination of tapping and then I only got a little bit of the red on my nail and I thought, you know what? This red is so pigmented. It's actually a neon red that I'm just going to pour the powder over for the second layer and then scrub in the rest. So one of the things that I always struggled with when I was doing ombres was getting the ombre to blend. And what I normally like to do when my nails are long is I tap both layers and then I scrub in. And you'll see me here, I did the tap first. And then what I'm doing on the second layer is I do scrubbing for both colors. So I scrub in the red and then I scrub in the pink to really make sure that it blends. Like I really like to scrub in the darker color just because obviously scrubbing a darker color into a lighter one makes it so much easier. Now, one of the things that I like to do when my nails are really short like this is work my way down on the scrub part. So I scrub just the very tips to start because the ombre tends to move its way down a lot faster when you're working with short nails. So just scrubbing the very, very tips helps me to get that ombre blend a lot nicer. Compared to when my nails are longer, it's easier to do tap and then scrub. What I did was pour the pink back into the jar, and then I used that dish that had the pink in it to kind of catch the excess powder that's falling from the red. And the two colors that I'm using are both from OG Dip Powder for the ombre. Actually, all three colors. I'm going to use a glitter then, a chunky glitter. The light pink is called Sweet Cheeks. The red is Smiling's my favorite. And then the glitter that I'm going to be using is called Just Know. Sweet Cheeks and Just Know are from a Valentine's inspired collection from OG Dip Powder, and Smiling's my favorite is a red that's from a Christmas collection in the past that I literally cannot live without. I have gone through, I think I'm on my second or third jar of Smiling's my favorite just because it is my absolute favorite neon red and I wear it year round. So what you see me doing is continuing to scrub in the red, and the way that it ends up in the pink is it ends up almost a little bit like a neon reddish pink, which I absolutely loved. And then I took the brush and just kept like switching back and forth. So I'd scrub in a little bit of the red, then I'd go and scrub in a little bit of the pink. And there was some pink that landed on my flexible plate, and I just used that, and that was enough just to do the scrubbing. And the majority of my scrubbing was at the very tips. So since my nails are so short, just scrubbing at the tips allowed it to blend down so beautifully. I was absolutely obsessed with how this ombre turned out, and it's going to take some time. So if you're struggling with solid color ombres, grab some swatch sticks. You can get them really cheap off Amazon, and do some practicing on how you blend those colors. If you're still really struggling with getting them to blend, that's going to be such a nice way to help you, like just doing your practice instead of, if you're somebody who gets frustrated doing it on your nails the first time, just practice on the swatch sticks. And this part for me is an absolute non-negotiable. I do this for every single ombre. I apply clear dip powder over my ombre nails and really make sure that it is soaked in. So I will continually pour it over, like over and over. You can see that I am just pouring and pouring it because I want my dip base to be completely soaked up by the clear. The clear needs to really encapsulate that ombre, or else when you go to file and buff and shape, you're going to accidentally file some of that ombre off, right? And you worked so hard to scrub it in and look exactly how you wanted. We don't want to mess that up. Pouring the clear over, or even like laying your nail flat like I was doing for my middle finger, I just kept tapping it in until it was really soaked in, and that protects my color. And then I go and I brush off any excess just to make sure that I don't leave too much clear on, that like there's not like a ton sitting there. And once you get the excess cleared, brushed off, then you want to go in and apply your activator. So you want to apply that activator right away, because this way when you're doing a glitter next, you're not going to accidentally get some glitters stuck in your colors. I do that regardless of if I'm doing an ombre or not. I always do my solids and shimmers first, encapsulate them with clear, and then go with my glitter, because I know how messy I am, and you're gonna see how messy I am in this video. So just wait. Okay, now we can talk about how you do chunky glitter on short nails, because it's definitely a little bit trickier than doing it on long nails. When you have long nails, you've got a lot more nail real estate versus short nails. There's less nail real estate. And you just saw me, I spilled a whole bunch of this glitter and cleaned it up off camera because I was like, nobody wants to watch me clean up a bunch of chunky glitter. So on the first dip that you're going to do for the chunky glitter, you do not want to pick up a lot of the chunky pieces. And this for when you have short nails. You want to lay your nail flat into it, but you just want to get the base of the chunky glitter dip powder. You don't want to get too many of those chunky pieces, because if you do, your nails are going to end up looking too thick. Then what I love doing is I found this small washi tape that I put on one of my fingers on my opposite hand, typically my middle finger, and I use that to press the glitter down really well. And if like your tape gets too sticky, then you just put a new piece on. I've been using the same like bunch that I got for, I don't know, it was cheap. I think like less than $10 of the washi tape. I've been using it for probably like a year or two now. It lasts a really long time because you only need a little piece. So on that first layer, your goal is to get the base of the dip powder down. And then on the second layer, your goal is to get as many of the chunky glitter pieces as you possibly can, if that's the look that you're going for, right? Like, so I like my chunky glitters to be chunky. I like to see all that good chunkiness. And when my nails are short, doing it like this, where I put the dip powder into my little dip cup liner and then I shake it up. So when you shake up the dip powder, like a chunky dip powder, you shake it up, the bigger pieces are gonna come up to the top. That's how I'm able to get so many on only one dip, so that I only have to hand place a couple. My goal is to always do as a minimal hand placing of the chunky glitter pieces as possible. So this little trick of shaking up the dip once it's in the dip cup is so great. And you definitely want to make sure that in between your layers, you brush off the excess, because you don't want it to be any thicker than it needs to be. And another key for getting chunky glitters to not be super thick on short nails, and this really goes with whatever kind of powder you're using, but especially chunky glitters, is applying your dip base thinly. So I focus really hard on making sure that I have applied my dip base thinly before I lay my nail flat into the chunky glitter. And in between each dip, I'm shaking the dip powder back up and kind of like tapping it on the table so that all the big pieces come to the top. And then I just use my orange wood stick that I use to clean up my cuticles. I just use that to move the pieces around. Now, I normally pour some of the glitter out onto one of my flexible plates from SJ3, but they were all dirty. So what I did was I just tried to like pull pieces out that were in the dip cup. And all I do is put extra dip base down on my nail. and then take the end of my orange wood stick and dab it into the dip base, and then pick up the pieces I want and place them on my nail there. So that is how I'm able to get my chunky glitters to look beautifully chunky but not have thick nails when my nails are this short. And then of course, just like I did with my ombre, you want to encapsulate with clear dip powder. And the same thing like I did on my ombre, I pour the powder over, the clear dip powder over until it is totally soaked up. Like you want that clear protected, or you want your glitter protected, because if you don't protect it with the clear, once you go to file and buff, you're going to buff some of the color off of the actual glitter pieces. You're going to turn it like a silver or a white, which we definitely don't want, right? We worked so hard to get our glitters to look really nice. We don't want our glitters to turn silver. So pouring the clear dip powder over and over really helps. Now, some people like to do 2 layers. I personally find that it works great for me just to keep pouring it over. You pretty much keep pouring the clear dip powder over until you can see it sitting on the top, and that's when you know you have enough that it got into all the little nooks and crannies of the glitter powder, and you know then you can brush off the excess and go and activate. And once you've activated and your nails are hardened, then you can go through and do your filing, your buffing, and you want to fix up your nail shape too. So whenever you're dipping, dip adds some bulk, and I like to go in with the hand file to clean up any of my nail shape that got a little bit wonky from the dip powder, that maybe looks a little bit too much on one side, or is it too thick on the end, and kind of crisp my lines back up if I have, if I have short nails, if they're square. I like to use a nail drill bit to go around my cuticles to really make sure that my cuticle lines are nice and clean. They look super even, and it gives you those, quote unquote perfect cuticle lines. Then I go through and I take isopropyl alcohol, apply it over all of my nails so that all the dust and the filings are all cleaned off, and I'm ready for top coating. Now, whenever you're using dip top coating, I have had so many people say to me, like, my dip top coat isn't shiny. What's going on? So whatever dip liquids you're using, follow the instructions for the brand that you're using. If you try to follow instructions for a brand that you're not using on a different brand, it's most likely not going to work. Now, of course, some dip liquids, their timing is the same for top coating, but a lot aren't. So with OG dip powders, you do it one hand at a time. You do heavy activator on 5 nails, thumb to pinky. Then when you get to your pinky, you count to 10, and you go in with your first layer of the dip top coat on back on your thumb. You do 2 to 3 quick, thin, even strokes, and you float them over your nail. So what that means is your brush should barely be touching your nail for the top coat on that first layer. And I actually do this floating method regardless of the brand that I'm using. It just works really well to keep my brushes from contaminating. Then for OG, once you get to your pinky on your top coat first top coat layer, you go right back in with your second layer. You go back to your thumb, and you can do this a little bit more detailed. Take your time, really make sure that the dip top coat is covering your entire nail, and you cap your edges with that dip top coat. So for people who want their nails to last a long time, that is going to majorly help by capping your edges. If you're here and you're like, Nicole, I am not ready to ombre and you just need help with basic dipping, I got you. Make sure you check out this next video and I will give you my 12 tips for a perfect dip manicure. Thanks for joining me today, nail crew.